Welcome back to the webcast of Founders Unfiltered. I'm your host, Freddie Coffey. And Founders Unfiltered, of course, is a series of candid conversations with inspiring entrepreneurs from Ohio and beyond, where we get to find out the story behind the founder. I am very excited to be joined today by Rod Robinson. He is currently Senior Vice President of Insight Sourcing Group and the founder of ConnXus, which we're going to talk about and learn how that company came to be and Rod's story behind all that. Rod, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we really find out more about you, I'm going to talk about you and kind of read your bio off here, as we always do at the beginning of the show, just to give that brief introduction for everybody. So Rod Robinson is Senior Vice President at Insight Sourcing Group and leads the firm's supplier diversity practice and Center of Excellence. He was the founder and CEO of ConnXus, a cloud procurement platform that enables global 2,000 companies to achieve supply chain objectives related to supply chain transparency, diversity, sustainability, and economic impact. He led the company from startup through multiple rounds of venture capital financing and more, through 600% revenue growth on the way toward building an enterprise customer base, including some of the world's leading brands, which we will, I'm sure, get into, and ultimately acquisition by Coupa in May of 2020. And this is what we get when we're recording. This is what we get when we're doing a show like this. And
it's
from
real.
Prior to founding ConnXus, Rod was a seasoned procurement executive with deep strategic sourcing expertise. His expertise comes from over 25 years of experience as Chief Procurement Officer for a Fortune 1000 telecom and as a management consultant with global consultancies. And again, Rod, thank you so much for joining us for the webcast today. Really appreciate you taking the time and being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we have briefly talked a couple of weeks ago as we were kind of prepping for the session today, and I got to learn firsthand about ConnXus and your founding, and honestly, being your journey from being a startup founder to really just running a company over the course of a significant amount of time. So before we get into that founder story, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the company first? Let's get into the history of ConnXus and where that idea originated from.
So the idea originated from a need that I had, a challenge that I faced relative to my role as a chief procurement officer and having responsibility for corporate procurement. But, oftentimes in procurement, there are compliance issues relating to contracts with customers around specific goals to spend with specific supplier populations like minority, women, veterans. So there are a lot of reporting requirements around that to prove that you're in compliance. I think it really, the whole history of supplier diversity and inclusive procurement is all about small business, supporting small business because small businesses are the engine of the economy. Small, diverse businesses, on disadvantaged businesses, again, they drive the jobs, right? And so there's always sort of been this effort, and you'd be hard pressed to find any major corporation that doesn't have a small business contracting program, supplier diversity program. It's called different things, but at the end of the day, it's all about driving impact. And so I was given my role in consulting with large consulting firms. I guess I was surprised that when I took on a role as chief procurement officer, that technology and more updated systems weren't being used or integrated with ERP systems to actually help companies manage this whole process of being able to verify the identity of your suppliers in terms of the demographics, as well as to really track and report that information with confidence. So I saw an opportunity to sort of merge my passion for supplier diversity, minority business development, with my expertise in procurement, having been in this space for so long. And I saw an opportunity to create a platform leveraging technology to make a lot of manual processes more efficient. And so I wanted to solve a problem that I had and many colleagues had, and so ConnXus was born.
So you mentioned that through supplier diversity, a lot of small businesses can be supported. It's a great way for Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, things like that, to be able to support the local economy. What's the competitive advantage? Because I'm sure that there is one. The competitive advantage for those larger corporations to have, a dedicated stake in supplier diversity.
From my perspective, I always consider myself a sourcing and procurement person first, right? So when I'm running a procurement organization or supply chain organization, it's all about driving efficiency without sacrificing quality. So I want to procure goods and services at the optimal value. And so what I found over the years is that having a more open supply chain, providing access to opportunities to, a range of suppliers, and being willing to, take a little bit more time to scan the market for suppliers that might bring something unique to the table. I found that over time, I have not only been able to be competitive from a cost perspective in terms of sourcing, but it's also provided access to new markets. I've gained insights to markets that I hadn't thought about. And I've also found that these diverse suppliers, they bring new ideas and innovations that really add a lot of value. So I've just found that, having a more diverse and inclusive supply chain just drives, significant value. I mean, I can, have countless examples of introducing a new supplier, a strategic supplier, into corporate supply chain that, not only led to reduction in costs, but and help us drive, improve our margins, because, now there's a supplier that happens to be diverse that has enabled us to move to a different strategic item. And I like to use this example of DSO modems, that we were acquiring when I was in telecom. We were buying this really highly spec'd modem that enabled us to provide internet service to our customers, and, met a supplier at a trade show, and that made this really cool modem. Long story short, comes to find out with some tweaks, it would that modem would be compatible with our proprietary network. And so not only did we identify this great new product that we were able to introduce to our customers, but we did it at a double-digit reduction in cost, which significantly improved our margins. So that's just one example of
I would say that that's an advantage.
Yeah. So I love the ideal situation is when you can introduce a great new supplier that maybe minority owned or women owned, or veteran owned, and they're bringing that kind of value to the supply chain, and I've seen it over and over.
So the technical solution to organizing that was certainly a needed one. I mean, your story is pretty remarkable in that you identified a problem, created the solution for it, which is a well-known path to entrepreneurial success, especially if you're in an industry where all of your colleagues are having that same problem, sharing that problem. To create a solution internally to come up with something like that and then develop into its own enterprise solution seems to be a pretty successful path forward. But you started it as a founder and then led the company to significant growth with some pretty impressive clients. Talk about the changes that took place for you personally as the founder of this company, as you transitioned from the idea to startup founder, then to CEO, running the company. How did that change you, or what were the transitions that you went through there?
Yeah, it's, I think for most founders, we're visionaries. We have this vision, and from that vision, we develop a value proposition with, with help from, advisors and other smart people that you surround yourself with. But I think that, being a visionary doesn't always translate, pound for pound with, being a CEO. But I think that it is important to have, to make sure you bring people to the table, that complement your skill set, kind of hire to your weaknesses. And so really the transition, I think, for any founder is challenging, right? Because I think for so long, in the early days, you're wearing so many different hats and you're comfortable wearing so many hats. And I think the big challenge is to get to a point where, you can identify the right team members. I think those early hires are so important to make sure you bring in the right people on the team, because you have to bring people on who are going to be what I call stewards of the vision, who can, who get it, who share that same passion. And so the transition for me, it was probably just as challenging as it is for any founder, is, sort of really understanding the right time to hand off responsibilities and not continue to wear all the hats, because otherwise it's going to be difficult to scale. So I think, that's probably the biggest challenge in giving up, letting go of certain things that, where there are people who would be much better at doing it than you.
So there's certainly a time where you have to delegate, and just things grow beyond, just you running things. But, you said previously that decision making, and more specifically, the right decision making, is a major part of being an entrepreneur, at least successfully growing your company beyond just the idea. Are there more examples of that other than hiring and deciding when to let things go or when you need to delegate?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think there's strategic decisions that you make along the way. I think even things like how you price your product is important. Having discipline around that. I look back on, having gone through, an acquisition, I got a chance to see how a much larger SaaS company operates at scale in terms of pricing and discipline, and really being focused on the core business, having that vision. And so as I look back on my journey, I think we were very successful capturing some really incredible brands as customers. But in hindsight, I would have probably spent more time going deeper with some of those large logos. Like one of our earliest customers it's well documented, McDonald's was one of our first major customers. And I would probably go back and that relationship was still with McDonald's was great even once we got acquired, and I still keep in touch with the executives at McDonald's today. But I think that we probably could have gone deeper with like a McDonald's, for example, and probably built out sort of driven a higher, what we call sort of, in telecom, it's ARPU, average revenue per unit, or average, annual contract value, average annual contract value. So I think we could have gone deeper in certain verticals, but hindsight is 20/20, right? So there are issues around pricing, strategy, products. You see this opportunity to start developing new products to sell. Well, should we continue to go broad, or should we go deeper, focusing on specific verticals? You have all those, there's just a lot of different things that come at you, and you just have to make, it's like every day you're making decisions, and you're just hoping that you make more good decisions than bad decisions.
That's a great goal, right? I mean, that's if it goes the other way, you're probably in trouble.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you brought up McDonald's, especially while we're talking about decisions, because I'll let you tell the story. But one of the best decisions you've ever made, I think, was relative to a meeting with McDonald's, right?
Yeah. It's really interesting how McDonald's ended up as a customer, but we got invited to compete in an RFP, and we made it. I mean, the process probably took 6 months to maybe even longer, and we had been it had been a year and a half, and we're building the product, and we got a couple smaller customers, but we didn't have a major customer like that really proved that we had achieved product market fit. Mm-hmm. And so lo and behold, we get invited to compete in this RFP with McDonald's. We made it we were shortlisted, and so we were invited to Chicago to present. And it just so happened that I was sick, like I had a flu bug or something. And this was like late 2011, I think. And it was just me, my VP of operations, and our head of sales at the time. And basically I was not going to go. I said, you guys can handle this. I think I don't want to spread my germs, or I'm sick. And then finally, after talking a bit, we kind of came to the conclusion that, even if you just gonna, for the drive up to Chicago, just lay in the back seat and sleep, it's important for you to be there. And I thought about it. I said, yeah, if I put myself in the shoes of the CPO, my CPO hat on, if we were going to take a risk on a startup, I would certainly want the founder to be there. And so I decided to go. And lo and behold, it was, one of my head of sales at the time, we kind of likened it to the game when Michael Jordan was playing with the flu, But, kidding aside, I think it was important for me to be there. Yeah, I was sick. But I think, something happened once we got there. Once we got into the presentation, I kind of let the team lead, but I was there to sort of answer questions and sort of chime in when needed. Sure. And, the one thing that I learned later is that the McDonald's team said, yeah, I mean, this was definitely a risk, awarding a contract to a startup. But it's something that McDonald's has been known to do over the years. I mean, I think they're a very entrepreneur-friendly company. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I was told is that, your passion for what you guys do really shine through. And, so we were willing to take a risk on you guys. So I think it's important especially in the early stages, when mm-hmm. it's still pretty risky, companies, even entrepreneur-friendly corporations, want to be convinced, and they want to have a reason to believe that they can entrust an important part of their business with the company.
So flu game for you, Rod, and you make it, you close the sale.
Yep.
What's how about a bad decision? what's an example of something where, I know that you made more right than wrong to this point, but were there any where you're looking back, hindsight 2020 and saying, man, I really wish I would have done something differently there?
Yeah, I probably would have, I think one of the biggest decisions for a company, well, particularly software startup, SaaS,
Mm-hmm.
is um, bringing in sales leadership with like really, so I think different stages, as you evolve requires different skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel like there's some decisions that I made, like I didn't make some people decisions
Okay.
fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
One that I look back on, I definitely feel like given the sales, sort of given the sales, you know, uh, strategy we were pursuing, that I had brought on a sales leader much earlier
Okay.
for us. I think that's probably, um, you know, a do-over. Maybe bringing in, we hired a sales leader, but it was a little bit later in the journey, prior to being acquired, and I wish I had brought that sales leader or someone else or someone else on sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think if I had to sum it up though, in terms of decisions, it was really around people, and I think in many cases in companies, it's all about people.
So that seems to be pretty important to you, the idea of creating a strong company culture, making sure that you have the right people, and then treating those people very well. You've previously remarked on the importance of avoiding overwork and burnout. How do you create a culture that emphasizes that really lives that culture that you kind of have identified and set out to try and achieve?
I think for so long, people have looked at working, crazy hours as a badge of honor, but um, I actually think that you're actually less productive if you can't draw the line between I'm at work, when I go home, I'm all in with my family. So I think leading by example is a great way to think about it. I mean, you know, people kill me when they say, "Oh, I never take a vacation." Like you're crazy that for not taking a vacation. You need that time to recharge. So even now, with colleagues that I support, I hey, Chris, you're on vacation. Don't answer your email. Don't answer the emails. I'm sure you're going to read them, but don't feel like you have to respond to them. So I try to lead by example, and encourage people to like unplug, because I feel like I'm so much more effective when I think I can probably go without a whole lot of sleep, but I really try to make an effort to get at least 6 hours of sleep. When I get seven, that's fantastic. But I definitely feel like recharging the battery just makes you that much more creative, at least for me. And so I try to sort of share my own experience. So you got to live by it, right? So that you can hopefully inspire others to do the same.
So leading by example, you have found a way to achieve that balance, or at least most of that balance there. Do you have, that's really difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially startup founders who are just getting off the ground, who are chasing VC, that sort of thing. Do you have like some life pro tips? Is it just all about discipline and saying like, I draw the line at, 6:30, I'm off my computer type of thing and I'm with my family, or do you have tips and tricks that you can share for that?
I just always I always try to find, I will say one thing I do try, whether it's really early in the morning or even if it's a little later in the evening, I'll find time to just have an hour at least of what I call thinking time, just time to myself. And I think that one thing I've done too is just I have what I call these zones where I'm really productive. Again, it's either really early, early in the morning, I pop up and, I'm in the mood to get some work done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just kind of go in that zone and do it. But then if there's, family time, we have a lot of family time. I mean, we do things as a family, we play games, things like that. And so the fact that, I kind of have these zones where I'm really productive, then that provides a lot more flexibility to have that family time. If it's during the summer and the kids are out of school, we all, grab lunch or go to the movies. Mm-hmm. But one thing I do is we definitely take at least, probably 2 family vacations per year.
Okay.
And so I think that's important. And my wife and I try to take at least one. Well, obviously this hasn't been a normal year or 18 months, right. But we try to take one, just vacation with just she and I, or with another couple or more couples, kind of an adult vacation.
Sure.
So I definitely try to do that. So I think, carving out that family time, whether, vacation, weekends, I try to hold it sacred. Definitely try to hold my weekends sacred.
Okay.
And I love to grill. So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you'll know that cooking is my responsibility on the weekend at my house. So I'm always on my green egg. So.
Well, you need that weekend if you're going slow and low or something like that, or doing some ribs or something. It's going to take some time up anyway, for sure.
Yeah.
So we've kind of gone through the founding of the company and the way that you work through that, defining company culture. Let's go back to May 4th, 2020, last year, and talk about your exit a little bit. ConnXus is acquired by Coupa. An exit's a huge moment for an entrepreneur. What were you feeling? Was it bittersweet? Was it, a weight off your shoulders? I don't want to put words in your mouth, or whatever it was for you, but what were you feeling at that point?
Well, I guess I reflected back on something that one of my investors said early on in the journey, and that was that exits are rare. And so, to have gotten to a point of kind of starting a company from scratch and, growing the company, and then getting to a point where, a company like a Coupa would want to acquire it, was great. And the fact that it, just sort of had, helped to validate that, this was a problem that needed to be solved. And so now it's, that vision is, continuing on, at least the ConnXus vision is continuing on the path, at Coupa, which is great. 20 or so of our 30 employees, are, thriving at Coupa, which is great. I still have a great relationship with the executive team at Coupa. And so I think it's, what it felt like initially, it was interesting because you quickly come to the realization that, okay, because as 30 days after we were acquired, Coupa made another acquisition. And I was like, That's interesting. I found out about it in the news like everybody else, right? So I quickly realized that, like, oh, so I'm really not a key player here, you know. But no, I mean that's how it works in public companies, right? Um, so I had to grapple with the fact that pricing decisions, um, you know, it's Coupa's company now. I have no say in that. I'd have customers, call and they'd like to deal with me relative to
Hmm.
the ConnXus products and but no, I mean we had people that had a whole process in place for pricing approval. Rod just couldn't make a decision, make a call, right? So, but yeah, so the fact that you know I was kind of core, a central part of the decision making before. Now, we're part of this much larger organization,
Hmm.
and and maybe I'm an influencer, but at the end of the day,
Sure.
it's Coupa's company. So that was a bit of an adjustment, but Coupa's a great company, and I had a great time there, and in fact, I really didn't have any plans to leave, and just another opportunity came along to build again. So I saw that as a great opportunity.
So we can elaborate on that a little bit. You did join the team at Coupa, and then eventually stepped away. So what's life been like since that? Since stepping away from being with Coupa and managing the ConnXus product at that point, and then where are you focusing your energy now?
Yeah, so like I'm focusing now. Just I think like I said before, exits are so rare that what's I've been fortunate to be introduced to several promising startup entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
and so I had the opportunity to do some mentoring and advising. A little bit of angel investing, and it's been great. Just sort of coaching and mentoring, entrepreneurs who are kind of on the same journey that I've been on,
Hmm.
and I can provide access to my network and connections, and so so I'm getting a lot of fulfillment out of mentoring these aspiring entrepreneurs and seeing some really cool companies, being developed. And so I'm enjoying that and serving on some boards. It's been great. So I'm having fun.
So mentoring, advisory boards. We're going to tap you for some advice right now. What would you say to somebody who, is maybe working in the corporate world or something like that, and has identified a solution to a problem that they see in their role, but isn't sure where to go or what to do next? How do they start?
Um, I would say don't be afraid to reach out to someone. I mean that's what I did. The first thing I did was I reached out to friends and just shared the idea. Like, what do you think? I kind of it just grew from there. One positive response led to other connections and other people that were interested and passionate about it. And so I think just sharing the idea with people who would appreciate the solution,
Hmm.
that understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And it was, to me, it was just, I was just reaching out. I reached out to people that I knew and trusted, and that will that will often lead you to the places where you need to, where you would need to go next in terms of, creating a company around it. If it comes to that, if it's, if it's a product, and you need, help building the product. I mean, there are resources. I mean, particularly here in Ohio,
Hmm.
there's so many resources, like Jumpstart and Cincy Tech and, other kind of NGO type organizations that, Centrifuge. that can provide support. Many of these things weren't around, 10 years ago, or they've evolved a lot.
Certainly been a lot of change in the landscape in the last decade, and even in the last few years, just with resources certainly around dealing with COVID and that sort of thing. It's amazing how quickly things have to change now. So Rod has offered some great insights on starting and scaling a tech startup. When you're ready to get started on your journey, Jumpstart is here to help. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur hoping to get your minimum viable product off the ground, we invite you to apply for Jumpstart's Build Your MVP program. You'll receive hands-on mentoring from experts and a chance to take home up to $10,000 to develop your product. Designed for software founders, this accelerated 6-week workshop follows a proven blueprint for developing a software MVP for your first customers. Focused coursework and cohort-based development will save you time, money, and creative energy. And you can learn more and apply today on our website at jumpstartinc.org/BYMVP. Rod, those are my long form questions for you. So, but before I let you go, we do this thing on Founders Unfiltered that I'm branding just because I get to be the host as Freddie's Founders Unfiltered Fast 5 because I love alliteration. So I'm going to give you, it's actually 6 questions.
Okay.
You get 1 pass. So you have to answer 5 of them. It doesn't have to be a long answer. They're kind of quick fire. So if you're ready for this, we talked about decision making earlier. What was the easiest decision you ever made?
I ever made in my life?
Yeah, sure.
To marry my wife.
That's a good answer, right? What was the weirdest thing you ever heard in a meeting with a VC?
The weirdest thing I've ever heard. Oh my God. Shoot. Wow, you really caught me off guard on that one. The weirdest thing I ever heard. The weirdest thing I ever heard. Wow.
I'm not sure if this is taking long because there were a lot of weird things.
Well, I would say one weird thing that I thought was weird, and my COO at the time was there as well. And it was that this is like one of the best presentations we've ever seen. I mean, and you guys are so articulate. So I'm like, what does that mean? What did you expect us to be less articulate? So that was kind of weird, but again, so yeah, that's probably the weirdest.
What, you mentioned you try and get 6 hours of sleep at least. What kept you up at night the most when you were the CEO of ConnXus?
Fundraising. Yeah, fundraising. And yeah, that's definitely it.
If you had to choose a completely different career other than supplier diversity, procurement, being an entrepreneur, what would it be?
Jazz musician.
All right. Not a barbecue chef.
That'd probably be second.
I like it. What's something you're passionate about that you haven't tackled yet?
I'm really into really intrigued with fintech.
Okay.
I mean, I can't say I haven't really. I'm passionate about it. I haven't tackled it yet, but I'm still looking at. There's a couple of areas that I think are opportunities to bring some, up-to-date solutions. So that's an area. So that it's fintech, I would say.
All right. Well, that's 5, but I'm going to ask you the 6th one anyway. What's your favorite quote about entrepreneurship or business?
Hire people smarter than you and create an environment where they can do their best work.
Excellent. And I'm going to ask you a 7th one just because I want to know, what instrument do you play?
Well, I don't play anymore, but I did play the trombone.
Okay, excellent. I'm a trumpet player here, so But
I probably would play
brass musicians unite.
Yeah, I think if I had to, choose again, though, I probably would play sax.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool answer, right?
Oh yeah. I would play sax, but I played the slide trombone, and but I played football, so it was kind of like you got to be band or football. But so I was down that path.
Got to make that decision in high school to go one way or the other.
Yep.
All right, Rodwell, you are off the Fast 5 hot seat. In fact, answering 7 questions. I think that's definitely a record for us.
Cool.
This has been, a fantastic conversation. I really want to thank you again so much for sharing your insight, for talking with us today. We're really grateful that you're our first Cincinnati entrepreneur that we've had on the webcast. So great to talk to somebody on the other side of the state down there. And again, just thank you so much for joining us, and excited to see what your next opportunity brings, whether it's what you're doing now, advising other companies, jumping into the fintech space, or your first jazz album, I guess, when that comes out. So.
Hey, we'll see. Maybe I'll be a producer.
So thank you. There you go. Oh, man. So thank you so much, Rod. I really appreciate it. And we want to thank the audience as well for tuning in. We hope to see you next month as we sit down with Christian Zimmerman, founder and CEO of Coins, a fintech platform helping individuals take control of their financial future. In this special episode celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, we talked to Christian about his experience as a Latinx entrepreneur building a startup in Atlanta's exciting tech scene. We'll see you then.